What's up, guys? Welcome to episode number 12 of CMY podcast. I'm Yaniel. This is Marc on the top and Christian on the bottom.
I'm on the top. Marc's on the bottom.
Whoa. It's my recording, so you're on the bottom. Damn it. No. So this episode, we're going to talk about a couple of topics, starting off with Marc is trying to make another decision about buying stuff because that's what we do. We just buy things.
I think it's like just weekly at this point. Like,
yeah, it is.
We always have to assume. Like, I think we just need to start off the show. The show should be maybe named Marc Buys New Shit. Welcome to this week's episode of Marc Buys New Shit.
So we have one guy here that actually uses cameras professionally and makes money from them. And he buys things occasionally. And then we have me and Marc.
Right.
Who only gives money to cameras. And we
to be fair, constantly. I only buy things occasionally because my wife won't let me buy them more frequently. If not, I would definitely be buying. I don't know about as frequently as you guys, but definitely like more frequently.
Yeah. Well, let's be fair. I'm not just buying it and adding and accumulating, right? I'm actually.
That's what I do.
Buys and sells.
Yeah. I shift around based on what I think is what I want, which I never really am satisfied by for whatever reason, whether it's due to lifestyle change or something.
I wonder if you'll ever find like a gear, like, a set of gear that you'll just be happy with.
I thought about that.
Love and so much.
Whatever he has, like a 95 when he finally croaks and dies, that is his final
camera.
I found the final form.
No, I know exactly what it is. Because this is where it started from. So before we talk about what I'm going to do next or anything. So back when I kind of got into photography, it was because of travel. And my traveling has changed over time. And we lose Yanni? You there?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay, just making sure. My traveling routine or whatever has changed over time, especially since I've had kids. So, this is why I like the X100 came in as like a really great camera option, which I, still have. But I think that's what's going to dictate. If I could travel again and or be out and about, not just necessarily travel, just be out and about, it'd be really easy to kind of figure out here's what it is that I need. And I mean, it kind of has informed like what I think I will be fine with going forward. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So to give insight on what it is, I had a couple of Voigtlander lenses, a couple Porticrons, if you will. I had a 28 f2 and a 35 f2.5, the color scope power. So the 28 2 Ultron, 35 2.5 scope bar, and the hell did I sell? Oh, well, yeah, I said that one first. So those two are gone. They're actually, the 28 sold. I sold the 16 millimeter Fuji lens that I got from Yanni that I decided to try out. Yeah, I just try it. I did try it. Just wide is just not. I wanted it specifically.
He's like, nah.
Hey, I'm okay with it. He buys things from me. I put things up for sale. Marc buys them. I don't have to deal with it, and then he sells them to somebody else like 2 days later. I'm like, whatever.
It's just too wide, and like how I wanted to use it. Like the irony is that like I don't like shooting wide, not because I don't want a wide lens. Like I was actually fine with the Q in that focal length, but it was just too wide for what I wanted on the XT3. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It just like getting close to your kids. I got it.
It's just weird. It just didn't really feel right. So. Like I was actually shooting with the XT3 with the 16 to 80, fine, but it's just I'm not locked in at that. The whole point of getting the 16 mil, by the way, was to maybe consider getting a smaller package on the XT3 to where like, all right, maybe I'll take that instead of the X100 and I can get rid of the X100. It's not the same thing, just not. So why bother when I already have a 16 millimeter and the one stop of light difference just wasn't a big deal to me. So it wasn't worth having another lens for. To me, so yeah, that is going too. So it was a 16 mil 2.8 for Fuji, 28 mil f2, and 35 2.5, which isn't sold yet, still available. So if anybody's interested, great little lens. I've actually debated keeping that just because, again, my goal is to, if you will, standardize on 35 mil on the Leicas.
convince him to get rid of it.
Yeah. So
that many 35mm lenses.
I love that lens.
Which one? The Scopar?
Yeah.
It's for sale. It's boxed up. Oh, you want it back?
No, I don't, but I regret selling it to you.
Yeah. So
you want it back?
Yeah, hey, right. So it's
take that M6 back, bro.
Nah.
Price
You
went
get
up.
never.
Sorry.
Yeah, right. That appreciates. Yeah. So right now what I'm using as a primary, which and I think this is really what's helped it also, is that I have a 35mm f2 Ultron, like the newer one that came out with like a year or so ago, maybe 2 years now. It's a great freaking lens, a spherical lens. It's the sharpest lens I think I've used on the Leica so far. I mean, I haven't owned any Leica lenses, so yes, I know there's some Microns and some Luxes that are probably sharper, but for what I've had on the camera so far, it's really good. And now I don't have any faults with it, right? The two faults I had with it before is that the lens hood was ugly and I didn't like the lens hood before. So I got a different aftermarket lens hood. It's a little thinner, smaller, it keeps the profile low. And then the focus tab, or focus knob, I think we talked about this last episode. I now 3D print them and they are for sale. So if you have an Ultron and you don't like the little post,
we don't plug things until the end of the episode.
Oh, no. It's being plugged right now. Plug now and later. So that's there. So that's kind of helped with the ergonomics. The one thing that's a little off on it, it's not off. That was a beer can. One thing that is still kind of something to deal with is that it has a close focus, minimum focus distance of like 0.58 meters. So the way I shoot, especially with the kids around the house, is like I'll rack focus to like the closest distance and like, kind of rock my body back and forth to get a feel of like, what's in, or not get a feel to until it's in focus, and I'll take close-up shots that way. So, with this, I kind of have to like put it to 0.7 meters and then, do that. So, so a little stupid step to do extra, but if you're trying to just get stuff in the moment, it's kind of annoying. So not a huge deal breaker, but it's the one thing. So that's what I have now, and I really dig it. So
if anybody out there knows how to fix that with a 3D printer, please let us know.
Yeah, and we talked about this before, like offline, like maybe there's a way to like build some kind of stop on it. I haven't looked into it any further, to be honest with you, but I can imagine there's something that could be done for that. But so, Christian, you're going to say something?
I vote that you sell one of your 35s, at least one.
Oh yeah.
And then get a 35 Summicron to try out. I don't think you're going to love the Summicron. I just think that this is something that you put into your head that you need to get out of your head. And the only way to get it out is by getting it and using it for a week and then being like, yeah, no, I'm not convinced, and then get rid of it.
Yeah. I have thought about that.
I think you should be more looking into something like the King of Bokeh, or maybe even like a Meyer, what is it? Meyer.
Yeah, Meyer optics thing, whatever. I don't know. I haven't heard anything much about them, so I know the name. I just
what's the other one that's like that Japanese lens that has like the what? The MS optics stuff. That's, I think, more so along the lines of what I think from all the conversations we've had, and there have been many, of what you're looking for. I would love to try out the 28 from MS Optics. I think it looks so cool.
That lens looks cool.
Beautiful lenses that I've ever seen.
I must say, yeah.
That is a cool looking lens. And I think that the images that it creates is something more along the lines of what you're looking for. I prefer a much sharper clinical look. Therefore, my 35 Summicron is my favorite lens that I own, and probably the lens that I use the least. Yeah. Only because my M10 barely sees the light of day now. I'm almost getting to the point that I'm working every day. And I strictly shoot with my SL2 with a 50 Summicron SL and the Q2. That's all I use. I don't know how, after all the gas I've had over the years and gas that I create, kind of like what you do, where it's just like, I think I need this, but then I just sit there and I really think about, like, do I really need this? And I have yet to find myself in situations where I really need that. Like, if I'm at a wedding and I need a wider lens than what I have, which hasn't happened yet, and I've done a lot of weddings, I have a second shooter that has a wider lens than what I need, so I'll just have him shoot it. or her. Like,
and
it's not that
you carry
big
the Q2 or the Q also, or the Q2. I don't know what you're carrying, but that's your wider lens also.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
what
all
is
I
that what you're talking
carry
about?
in general for both portraiture, street photography, and not street photography. Street photography I try to do with my M10 and my 35. But for weddings and portraiture, which is my work, I only shoot with the SO2 with a 50 and a Q2, and that's it. And I honestly mostly shoot the Q2 at 35.
You got like the 2 focal lengths you need.
Yeah,
and
I don't need
you like
anything.
to be crazy and use a 90,
I want to convince myself that I need a 90, which I have a 90. I have a 90 Summit that I can put on my SL2. I can't use it on my M10 because it back focuses on my M10. But if I really wanted to, I could just throw it on my SL2 and use it like that. I have yet to find the time and place that I, number one, need to do that, and number two, really want to do that. I don't know that I want to be like manually focusing lenses on my SL. That's just
what do you do at the church when you're shooting like the nuptials? From like, do you get like really close to shoot them, or?
Not really, dude. Like, I get decently close with my 50, and if I really have to, I mean, I'm shooting an SL2, so I have 47 megapixels I can crop.
Oh, yes, I love 47.
If but realistically, to be real with you, like, I haven't yet to have to do that. I just don't. It's not a situation that ever comes up for me.
True.
I've literally had other photographers tell me, wedding photographers that are veterans, like, you need a wide lens, man. You need an ultra wide lens in case you need to shoot a big room shot. I've never had to shoot a big room shot before. I don't even shoot details at weddings anymore. Yeah. I'm the primary shooter, so my second shooter is shooting details. Like, it just doesn't come up. And then if I have a big group, I just walk back. You know what I mean? Like, I've literally shot a humongous group of like 50 people with my Q2 across the room, basically. Yeah, and it just works.
Pretty wide.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Once you get past like 24, you're getting fisheye, and nobody really wants that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wouldn't mind having a 24 to 90, but then I just can't imagine myself at any point, number one, wanting to go back to a zoom lens, because that's what I used to shoot with when I shot Canon. I had a Canon with a 24 to 70, and that was like
the staple.
Almost my
everybody has a
favorite setup for weddings, and it does work really well. I'm not gonna lie, it does. But stylistically, if you look at my work now, I think I'm doing the best work I've ever done with 2 primes.
Yeah.
You know. So
let's discuss that. You've also been shooting now for longer and doing this for longer. Do you think maybe you go back to the zoom? You might eventually get back to that would be your best work ever using the zoom.
No, because like, I think that using a zoom, and this is in no way my words, I've heard this several times from many photographers and many workshops and many YouTube videos. Using a zoom and not using primes, all it does is kind of muddy up your style. Like, there's no consistency. Like, if you're shooting at 24 and then you're shooting at 90 and then you're shooting at 75 and then you're shooting at 50 and then you're shooting at 35 and then you're shooting at 28 and then you're like, where's the consistency? There's no consistency.
Yeah, I can see that. And
so I just think that I just think that although I do view lenses as tools, I think I've just found the tools that I'm best with. 50 has been my most used lens throughout my career, because other than 24 to 70, I had the 50 1.2 from the L lens from Canon, and that was what mostly stayed on my camera for portraiture specifically. Like when I would do portraiture for like kids or families and stuff, and then portraiture for weddings, I always had the 50 on, and then everything else, event coverage, was the 24 to 70. And I've just found, like, for event coverage, I can literally just show up with my Q2 for event coverage and I'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel the same way about 35 now. And it's funny because I used to feel more comfortable with 50. And I remember when I got the M240 on, he was like, get a 35 because it'll be easier to focus and whatever. And like, I think combination of when I got the X100 and the first X100F that I had, and then the M240 with the 35 on it, like that got me used to 35. And now I have a 50 and I bought a 50 because I feel, there's still a difference to me. But like if I had to pick, I definitely pick 35 mil only, for what I do, which is obviously just, hobbyist stuff. And I just feel like it's easier to see the world. And it reminds me of when I had what was it, the 40 mil 1.7 on the micro four thirds, which is a little tighter. Like that was my favorite setup. It was sorry, not 40 mil, but it was 20 millimeter, but it was a 40 millimeter equivalent. And that was my favorite setup on that camera because, again, for one, the size just made it really small. And it just, was a fast prime. I mean, didn't focus very fast, which is interesting. But, it's just like, it was the type of thing where it's like, and I hate to get into the whole, not nomenclature, but, term, documentary photography, whatever, or documentarian. I mean, I'm just a guy taking photos for fun. But like, it was easier to kind of just see and preconceive stuff and like, because it's, I guess, close to whatever, how people view the world. Like it just feels natural to me now. Especially with a rangefinder, because, it's not the entire frame, but it's also not, tight like a 50 where there's so much space around it. And it's just easier to work with.
For me, I agree with you in that shooting a 35 millimeter on the M10 is my favorite thing to do ever. Like photography is not only my profession, but I'm lucky enough that it's also my hobby. And when I travel and when I have time for myself to actually shoot, like there's no question in my mind I'm using my M10. It's just so pleasurable to use, and the way that you see things is so natural, and it's so quick and easy and just natural, for lack of a better word. It's just natural. It's just your hand moves in a certain way, your eyes move in a certain way, you can open both eyes and see what's coming. Like it's just perfect.
So your hands move in a certain way. I used Leicas for the past, I think, 5 years, and I still didn't really know which way the focus went.
You said this Christian, last episode.
Christian mentioned you push out, and I think you already forgot, but I think you push out to go further and push in to go closer. And that stuck with me, and I've been doing that. And I'm like, oh, this is so easy. This is amazing. Yeah. It took me like 5 years to realize this.
Yeah. It's funny how that works. Like when someone says something, you're like, the light turns on and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, when it's spelled out for you sometimes. Exactly. Yeah, when it's spelled out sometimes, it just makes it that much easier to kind of like
I've definitely had grasp those moments in my career where it's like someone says something, they're like, oh, just do this. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that before?
But part of the reason I don't think about it is because you're shooting like a 50, you like shooting 50, 35s, like it's more challenging. I am a pragmatic, lazy photographer. If my ideal on the Leica will be a 24 because you set it to f8 and everything from like 1 foot to infinity is in focus. Don't even have to bother focusing, just go around shooting everything. But when you shoot 24, like you have to get really close to people, which I often don't do. Which is why I ended up now with a Q2. I have a 28 millimeter, set it to like f8 or f11. Pretty much the entire world is in focus. And I could crop and crop and crop and crop and crop and crop. And I still have like 30 megapixels when I get that close. It's amazing. It's opening up an entire new world. Like I took a photo, I posted on my story of like the scene, which was already very cropped in when I did it. And then I kept on going and going and going. And going, I could read like this little warning sign on the door, and I was across the street on a 28 millimeter. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah,
I love this.
I think, as I wouldn't call it a criticism, but just as like something to say about both of your guys' work is, I would like to see what your work looks like if you guys get closer to people.
I do. I would like to, but I don't think, I think that's why I've settled on 35 too. Cause I thought about this actually, as I'm selling 28, like it's not even that I don't like getting close. It just, it doesn't, it may be one of those things where like, I need to like do what I've done with 35, where it's like, this is the lens I'm going to use and this is how I'm going to go about it. So it's not necessarily that like, I don't want to, or I'm particularly afraid. It just doesn't come naturally. And going back to like, me always changing stuff, like that's why like I've kind of said, look, I'm ditching everything except for the 35. Mm-hmm. And I want to stick to that at least for primes, right? I mean, I have the X100, which is the 35 equivalent. I have the 35 Ultron on there, and I've basically said that's the limitation I want to live with, is like that focal length. I don't, I haven't even used the 50. I'm legitimately thinking about selling it because, it
same thing for me. I don't necessarily like using a 50 millimeter on the M10. The only lens that was 50 that I absolutely loved on the M10, and it wasn't so much the use or like the experience, the shooting experience of it. It's more so like the image quality and what it looks like after, is the 50 Summilux spherical. Like that lens is just like the creamiest thing I've ever seen in my life. I have a bunch. I borrowed one from the Leica store, Miami, and I did 3 sessions with it, 3 portrait sessions, and those are some of my favorite portraits I've ever taken. It was just like single person portraits of some friends of mine. It wasn't even like work. It wasn't something I got hired for. I called them. I'm like, hey, I want to test this lens out. Are you down to shoot? And I went to their house and I did it. And I saw the photos after. And I was like, I need this lens. I haven't been able to afford it.
There's one for sale for like $2,400.
What?
There's a 50 millimeter Summilux spherical for sale for like $2,400 on, I think, Leica classifieds.
I know, but my wife won't let me buy it.
But you need it.
So I tried to
tell her you won't put
cheat.
gas in your
I
car.
tried to do what Marc is doing with the Voigtlander and cheat and get something cheaper, and I got a Zeiss 1.5 and 50 1.5, and I kind of hate it. Like it's nowhere near what the Summilux looks like. Like now you can't even compare.
Yeah, because it's not a Leica lens. You have to have Leica on your Leicas. So Marc, you need to get the Summicron.
Yeah, I'm debating it.
Like, going back a few episodes, the best time to buy a Leica is now.
Yeah.
Lenses, you buy a used Cron, like it's not going to lose value. It might actually gain value, especially with tariffs and everything. The prices are going up.
Oh yeah, shit.
So,
so unless you buy one of those
Portuguese ones.
Who would do that?
Not me.
Yeah, but no, I mean, and we talked about this a little bit offline before we started recording, right? Like, I don't think at this point, like, it's the sticker price that shocks me anymore. I mean, yeah, shit. It does. It's part of the decision, because that's my question. Is like, would it make more sense to save the 3 times the price or whatever it is used to just stay with what I have, which I'm to be honest with you, like, optically content with. Like, I mean, if there's better, like, I'm like, okay, so, right. But at this point, it's more a matter of, getting rid of the 2 little annoyances that I said, the close focus distance. And there's another thing I forgot what it was that I said. But anyway, that was the last thing mainly that I remember. And, just have something that is, I don't want to say, again, be more cliche, but like, a forever lens with a forever camera type of thing, where it's like, all right, this is a setup that, has no flaws, if you will, right? It's like, do I go for that and just get the best and just say, all right, well, I've done it, and worst case I sell it,
you can take that like a Summicron, and in 30 years, when there's like a freaking 1,000 megapixel camera, the SL10 or whatever, and you can put it on that, or let's say the M15 or the M20 and put it on that, and it's gonna look amazing. Whereas
maybe it might
feel like having something like the Voigtlander or a Zeiss, even, yeah, it might look cool, but like, it's just not going to look optically the same, because it wasn't made with that same like quality control.
But even if it doesn't look amazing in 20 years or 30 years, there'll be some guy out there with a vintage M10 that's going to be like, these CMOS sensors at the best colors. You guys won't believe it. Yeah. So I have this corroded CMOS sensor, and I need to buy this 35 millimeter Summicron
from this generation.
Which this guy is selling for $25,000 because he still has the original box.
Yeah,
he could be that guy.
Yeah, because it's funny you mention that. Like, you talk about lens design and stuff like that. It's actually, I don't remember where I read it, but the more modern lenses, one of the benefits of them over the Leicas and everything is that they're designed for like these higher megapixel like digital cameras, right? Like if you think about optical designs for Leica lenses, they're made for film cameras. Yes, they're bolted onto Leica bodies, which I'm sure they factor that in when they design the body in a sense and everything like that. But, you know, the lenses, modern lenses are able to resolve a lot more than any kind of older lenses, which is I kind of one of the concerns I have about like buying an older Summicron. I'm kind of set on getting one of the 2S verticals just because I'm like, all right, I don't want to, you know.
So about that,
Okay,
there's
go
two
for it.
sphericals.
Yeah,
And
version 1
the
and 2.
rumors online, I don't think it's ever been actually confirmed.
Also, the double spherical, 3 sphericals.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna afford that one.
Oh, no.
I mean, some people can.
So the version 2 of the Omarit, the Summicron, all those, apparently it was created for the higher megapixel cameras. So the version 1 might not really hold up to these higher megapixel, 40 something megapixel sensors, maybe even 24. So
yeah, and I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. That's kind of why I brought up. I didn't hear that difference between particularly those two versions of the Summicron. But that's why I mentioned like the older versions, like the King of Bokeh and all the things like that. Like I have heard that yes, more modern lenses, were designed with digital sensors in mind, which can obviously resolve a lot more power than film. I mean, even if you go to like a 16 megapixel camera, it probably still has more resolving power than film, right? As far as like whatever, you get what I'm saying, the what it can actually show and so on. So yeah, that's definitely something I've considered. And that's one of the, I guess, the reasons to just go for a Summicron, right? I mean, thankfully, like affording it isn't particularly an issue, meaning like, yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, like for anybody to buy and everything like that. And, if you can do something for less money, sure, why not? But, like I said, I've kind of gotten over the price part of it, meaning like, yes, I will spend it if like I have a compelling reason and, enough time to put the money aside or whatever the right opportunity comes across to get one. So it's not that. It's just do I need to? Like for perfect example, and this is an analogy, I work at home, right? Especially with the pandemic, right? I'm even at home more. My car, thankfully, it's paid off. But if I were spending money on a very expensive car that just sits, I'd be very upset. So my thinking is, if I'm okay with a lens that is a third of the price that does what I need to do, what is the true benefit or the, I guess the realistic benefit of getting or spending the money on a Leica lens if I'm satisfied with what's here and, how much sharper is going to be, how, I'm not printing images big. I'm not doing this professionally. So, the only thing that I see is, again, lens that works properly with the camera, meaning like, I didn't have to ghetto code it and a bunch of other things, 3D printer focus tab for it, you name it, so.
Let's get pragmatic here. Your car, every day it sits, it's losing value.
Mm-hmm.
Every day that Voigtlander sits, it's losing value.
Fair.
Every day that Summicron sits, it's gaining value.
Yeah, or at least holding. Holding strong.
Value. Yeah. So if you're gonna have one lens here, you're not gonna use it. Let's sit there. Should be Summicron. You should just go buy one right now.
Oh, that's true. Because I mean, the idea is to use it. Huh?
On the show.
Let's do it. We're
streaming live now
on
Fred
card?
Miranda.
Man spends money live.
Yeah, no, it's a fair kind of analysis of it, right? I mean, and like I said, thankfully it's not pressing. It's not like I have no lens, and I've honestly been just waiting to like get at least the majority of these lenses sold. So it's just all right. The money is sitting here, and or at least the majority of the money is sitting here. Now it's just a matter to go buy it. So we'll see. I mean, they go up for sale. I mean, there was a couple. I always check B&H used and Adorama just because I have a thing about like buying stuff used like at that price level and then having some shitty like unexpected experience with it. So I always check there first to see what they have, and the prices are legitimately like $600 to $700 more, but they're flying. And there's none on Fred Miranda last time I checked. So. But I just keep a lookout and see.
Dude, I'm sure they're like classifieds. There's like one every other day. So
yeah.
I don't know. I just buy everything with PayPal, and if something happens to it, PayPal will refund you.
That's true. Yeah. So all right. Well, we'll see. Like I said, hopefully I won't. Unless I find something that's, let's call it a 9 out of 10. Version 1 or version 2. version 1 sub, let's say $2,300, because I think that's like the threshold that I saw, which is like the max I'd pay for a version 1 spherical, or maybe 2,800 or something. Then I'll probably jump on it. The only thing I don't like about the version 2 is that lens hood looks massive, man. Like they changed it up a bit. I mean,
no.
What?
You want the version 2. I have
Why?
a version 1 Amar. It's the same concept. It has that little clip-on hood.
Yeah,
which
it pops off.
falls off. Not
Time.
like I've dropped it like 25 times. It's the most
Yeah.
obnoxious thing.
I saw that. And because remember, so for the audience, right? I had a version 1 Summicron that I was testing that I got actually from like B&H or somebody else, and like that was jacked up. So I had it, and I kind of like knocked it around, like flicked the lens hood to see if it would come off, and it didn't seem to drop. So I don't know.
It doesn't come off when you flick it.
I've never had an issue with the lens hood on mine, but I have a version 4.
So
well, yeah, that's the same one we talked about. Yeah.
My biggest issues were when I was in California. It was kind of cold. Had a bunch of like outerwear on and stuff. I had my camera bag and a baby. That something would just nudge the little tab and drop my lens cap, and it kept on happening. And it happened so many times. I'm like, I hate this lens, and I'm constantly thinking about getting rid of it just to get a version 2 that has a screw-on lens hood.
Yeah.
Because
All right.
it
Well,
eliminates that problem.
all right. So decision's been made, just like previous episodes where like I said, all right, I'm going to get an M10 or whatever, and I come back with one. Maybe, I've decided,
week.
or right. Next
Marc
week,
will
I'll
have
be
a
back with a
Summicron,
Summicron.
or at
There
least
you go.
one on the way.
Yeah. So,
But by the end of October, he'll come back with a Q2 also.
We talk about this all day, all
Long.
week, every like all day long in a group chat, and decisions don't get actually made until we
Until the
speak about
show.
it live on the show.
It's the peer pressure, man.
I don't think it's the pressure. I just think that we're talking in person, so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, it
ideas
is a
come
little
across
different.
easier.
Maybe we should start a podcast 20 years ago.
I know, right?
I've been having these discussions with Marc since like 2002.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Jeez.
glad I came along and forced you guys to start this podcast.
Yeah, you
I
did.
have other ideas that I'm trying to force on them that I can't speak of right now. So,
Cool.
guys,
Well, all right,
thanks
we'll
so
see,
much. Like and subscribe, please, on YouTube, Spotify. Follow us on Instagram at cmy.cast.
DM me about these focus tabs if you know you got an Ultron.
Yeah,
It's focus tab. It's almost a Summicron.
tab.
It's almost a Summicron. It's
So we're
almost.
plugging things now.
Yeah.
Get your beautiful beers at B Culture over on the 826 to 836 interchange.
Yo,
And yeah.
get your iPhones at Apple.
Get your coffee at Tinte Café.
Yeah.
Oh,
Always
it's actually,
repping.
it's like
Always repping.
croqueta day, and
It
they
is
have the best
National
croquetas in
Croqueta Day.
Miami.
It's true.
Fight me.
I'm about to get
It's not Isla Canaria.
in my dreams.
It's Tinta. Fight me. Later, guys.
All right.